For more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to
IC. Happy anniversary, dear Illegal Curve, including Drew, Ezra, and Dave.
Happy anniversary
to us.
There you go. That's the end of the show.
I have
Goodbye,
never
everybody.
heard you hold a musical note like that before, Drew. That was nice.
My dog just got upset. She just came into the room, wondered what the hell was going on, and just got upset. So we're off to a great start this morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Manitoba. Good morning for all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Just make sure that you blow those candles out, Drew, because I don't want you to, light on fire here.
You know, it's very difficult to light candles into a piece of French toast. This is not stable, is what I can tell you. And so I'm concerned about the future of this, and will it light my house on fire? So while I did want to get a little bit of prop comedy in so far, I thought I might want to blow these out at this point before it cause any more damage tonight.
You've already had like 6 pieces of French toast this morning, so that's going to be number 7 for you.
Well, I don't think I'm going to eat it. Like the candle wax is dripping into it. And I don't know where these candles are really from. I think they're pretty old.
Maybe they're from Brixton's 14th birthday.
It's possible. I'm more thinking they're probably from my kid's 1-year-old birthday and 4-year-old birthday is probably more likely. So hang on, let me just get rid of these before we cause any more damage. There we go. Hi, Ezzy.
Can you believe it's been 14 years? Like, I was thinking about that. Like, obviously, last year was 13, so it's not like it's that crazy, but it kind of is crazy. Like, when you just think of 2009 is a really long time ago, right? Like, that's before marriages and kids and the Jets being back in Winnipeg. Like, it's pretty crazy, but yeah, it's going to be fun to celebrate today.
It is going to be fun to celebrate. We'll have our usual content of Jets talk, as well as our usual content of nonsense, because you wouldn't expect anything different. I hope everyone's had a good week. We haven't seen you in like 6 days. That's like the longest time we've been apart in a really, really long time. So I hope everybody has had a good week so far, that you haven't had too much withdrawal from us, that you've been able to spend some time with your loved ones, or maybe, catch up on some, TV viewing, whatever it might be. Maybe you've just been sitting in anticipation, waiting for the skills competition and the All-Star game. If you are, I suggest that you should seek immediate help. That's not healthy. Because I don't know if you watched it last night, Ezzy.
I did.
I really wasn't expecting to watch much of it, but my kids sort of were interested for 3.5 minutes, which is longer than I expected them to be. And they said, "What is this? Why am I watching this? This is awful." And we're not going to delve deep into the All-Star skills competition or the All-Star game, because
I actually thought, let's get into it for a little bit. Obviously, it's going to be mainly Jets focused here, but if it's in Florida, why not have fun with it? Like, that's my whole thing, right? Like, the All-Star game itself, nobody really watches it, or if you're going to watch it, you're not going to watch the whole thing because the score doesn't really matter. No. I mean, nobody's really trying that hard, right? There's some nice goals and a few nice saves, but really the skills competition, similar to the NBA, right? We talk about this every year, right? Like, most people want to watch, the dunk competition, the shooting, everything like that. I liked, the splash shot. Like, it's fun. It's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong, Drew. Like, watching Cale Makar pick off surfboards is ridiculous. And then watching Sidney Crosby get dunked, that's what I'm saying. So, like, to me, like, it's some of it is ridiculous. Like the Chipotle pitch and putt or pitch and puck or whatever it is. Like, Nick Suzuki won it. Okay, great. It's ridiculous, but at least the NHL went a little bit outside of the box. And I like that, right? Like Josh Morrissey, he was clocked at 96.7 miles per hour. Elias Pettersson obviously won it with 103 miles per hour. But, Morrissey, Hellebuck won the goalie tandem event with UC Saros. So Jets fans could enjoy that. But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Drew, I mean, this is it's a fan event. It's for kids. It's a TV event, right?
Well, so the events that they did on the beach, the golf one or the surfboard one, those were at least unique and a little bit, outside the box. The ones that were in the arena, like that Tendy tandem, you need to have a PhD to understand the rules of that event. Stuart Skinner is throwing pucks the length of the ice. Hellebuyck's in net. I assumed they were on the same team, but apparently they weren't on the same team. Hellebuyck was on a team with UC Saros, and I don't know where UC Saros was. It was just like, if you need to explain it like really in depth, it's like a joke. If you need to explain the joke, it's not going to be funny.
Well, exactly, Drew. And also, why not just go back to the breakaway challenge, right? Like, everybody likes to see the creative moves that happen on breakaways, and you saw that obviously, but like, just keep it that traditional breakaway challenge. I agree with you. The goalie event was a little bit confusing, but for me, fastest skater, accuracy,
doesn't need.
It's nice for Brock Nelson, I thought, because Brock Nelson's, I've always thought, has been like underrated. Former UND standout, right? So he wins the accuracy. Connor McDavid, was shining in that event as well, right? So yeah, some of the events were not the best events.
Breaking news. I just got an email from NHL PR. The Truly Hard Seltzer NHL All-Star Beach Festival has been delayed. The next update is going to come at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you were planning on heading to Miami for the Truly Hard Seltzer NHL All-Star Beach Festival, it has been delayed. Please do not panic. There will be a further update to come at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm not sure if we're going to be covering that live on illegalcurve.com or not, but just so you know, do not panic. That is what's happening right now in South Florida.
I don't think we have to worry about that, Drew. The only place we're going is Miami Beach, Manitoba, or maybe South Beach Casino. But yeah, I mean, look, I think it's been a lot of fun, and this is about showcasing hockey to non-traditional audiences, right?
That Mitch Marner Miami Vice intro was cringeworthy. I mean,
I didn't see that because obviously, the skills competition started at 6, so that's right around when I'm doing daddy duty. So I didn't see that, but I'll take your word for it.
I felt bad for Mitch Marner because I mean, I'm sure he's just trying to be a good sport and he's trying to do his part. But just hire some better writers. That's all you got to do, NHL. Hire some better writers. I don't know what intern they dragged out of a closet to come up with this thing. First of all, Miami Vice was literally 35 years ago, I think. So Mitch Marner has probably never seen an episode of Miami Vice.
Nobody under the age of 30 has heard of Miami Vice.
Nobody has any clue what Miami Vice is. Other things have happened in South Florida since then. Find something that's just a little bit more unique, a little bit more relevant to,
like CSI Miami.
Sure. Get David Caruso to do the stupid sunglasses thing. I think we have a murder, whatever. It doesn't matter. I promise never to do that again.
That's pretty good, by the way, actually.
I creep myself out with that. But whatever it might be, fine. Just hire writers. They work for pretty affordable rates. I know you're the NHL and you're cheap as can be, but try and find somebody who can write something a little bit better than any of that, because Mitch Marner doing some sort of weird Miami Vice and then coming in on a breakaway on Roberto Luongo, but not trying. It was just odd. It was odd. It was awkward. It was poorly done. It was and then of course, and I feel sorry for the broadcasters, who are, trying to chuckle along with this as if it's the most wonderfully entertaining thing they've ever seen. It's like watching a bad wrestling segment and the announcers are fake laughing their way through it. It's like, just get on with the actual activities and everyone else will be better off for it. And we hopefully never have to talk about this again, because it was getting a little awkward there for a long time. And it's a long event. Holy moly, it just kept going and going and going and going. It's like, end it. We're done with this. We're ending it. We're ending the segment. We're done talking about the All-Star game. That's enough of that, because any more than that, it makes it unworthy. Ezzy, good morning. Nice to see you. Let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets. 30 games to go in the regular season when they come back next Saturday to face the Chicago Blackhawks. 30 games.
At that really normal 9 o'clock start time.
Totally normal.
Totally normal to start a home game at 9 o'clock at night.
I like it. I don't have any objection with it. I think it's going to be a bit of a rowdy crowd, I would hope. And
aren't you out of town for that game?
Yeah, yes, but I still.
That's
like
why you like it, Drew.
I don't have a problem with it. I like the idea of it. I've been advocating for at least one a year that they should do. It's not every game has to be. They can do some games where they're not necessarily focused on. They're throwing a bone to the drunken population that might attend a hockey game.
Why not start a game at 10:30 at night, Drew? Why not 10:30? What about 11?
Sure, why
Midnight.
not? Sure, why not? Let's have some fun with it. What the hell? Where's this guy coming in from?
This wasn't part of the show plan.
There was a show plan?
I didn't know. Is there?
I don't know. I've been wondering where the hell you've been for the last 12 minutes.
Where in the world is Dave Minuk?
He's somewhere, all right. He's somewhere where he can be walking outside. Let's put it that way.
What time is it where you are, Mr. Minuk?
7 o'clock in the morning.
7 a.m. Dave is venturing out bright and early in some warmer climate, clearly, all to join us here on the 14th anniversary show. Dave, you missed an intro for the decades that we're not going to recreate. You can watch it on the replay, but
Sure.
Nice of you to be able to join us this morning anyways.
Yeah, the birds are chirping. The sun is bright, but happy to be able to join the boys for a 14th anniversary show.
Now, are you joining us for the next hour and 47 minutes, or are you joining us for like the next 47 seconds, just so we can?
This is more of a 5-10 minute pop on.
Okay, just a quick hello. Nice to see you, gracing us with your presence.
I'm pulling a Kenny Weeb walking through Denver sort of thing, doing the show kind of thing.
It's quite the virtual background that you have, Dave.
Yeah, it's actually cool. It's one of those virtual backgrounds that allows you to move, so it gives the appearance that I'm walking.
So are we gonna reveal your secret location right now, or are we gonna keep it a mystery?
I think it'll become apparent when somebody hands out one of those cards to Dave as he's walking down the strip.
Apparently, they don't. Oh, well, Drew, you just revealed it, but apparently
it wasn't a real state secret here, Dave.
It's really going to be given away when Dave walks into a strip club.
Yeah, Spearman Rhino has a great breakfast buffet.
By the way, I want everyone to. Well, no, we can't because Bailey the intern might be in the show, and I can't expose her to that sort of thing.
Bailey is there, so behave yourself. Whatever you were going to say.
Yeah. Anyways, how are you guys doing?
We're doing great. We were talking about the
Happy anniversary
NHL skills competition. I'm sure you didn't watch a second of it.
Let's put it this way: I was watching more of the Moose and Admirals game in Milwaukee than I was of the skills competition.
That's still concerning that you're in Vegas and you're watching the Moose and the Admirals.
Well, I mean, I wasn't the entire time, but I'm saying I was more likely to watch the Moose Admirals game, which coincidentally turned on for 2 minutes, and they just happened to score a goal. So that was about it.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Dave, people want to know, by the way, if the Chinese spy balloon is above you.
Well, I am in the Conrad, which I believe is an Asian-themed hotel, so it's possible that it is. I don't know.
It was actually over Western Kentucky last night, over Paducah, Kentucky, is my understanding, and of course, my close ties to Kentucky make it so that I'm aware of these sort of things. But yes, that's apparently where the balloon was, and that there's a second balloon somewhere over Latin America as well.
Is this just like the Remax balloon? Is that what this is? Just the newer version of that?
No, I don't think it's a hot air balloon.
Why are we supposed to care about a balloon when there's literally like bazillion satellites that are doing the exact same thing?
Well, or the fact that everybody that's got TikTok on their phone is just willingly handing over the same information without needing a balloon, basically.
So I mean, I'm not entirely certain what's going on with that.
Well, let us know if you see the balloon, Dave.
I'll keep my eyes peeled, boys.
Well, he's going to walk past Paris. Doesn't Paris have the big balloon outside of it?
Forget Paris, Drew.
That was clever, Dave. That was well done. In any event, Dave M is, of course, not with us this morning.
Well, I will be walking into the tattoo parlor to get an IC tattoo right here.
Okay.
Live on air.
Can we do that live on air?
Anniversary show. Well, if I believe in tattoos, then maybe, but I'm not a tattooer.
Dave, have you run into Chumley?
I have not run into Chumley.
Who's Chumley?
Pawn Stars.
Oh, Pawn. I haven't seen an episode of Pawn Stars in many a year, Ezzy. So that's good job pulling that one out.
I think it's appropriate that I've completely derailed the show.
The show has been off the rails from the get-go. So
yeah, Dave, it hasn't been on the rail yet. So
I was actually trying to get it back on the rail, but now I'm not really sure what to do with you because you're here, but you're not really going to be in a place to talk about the Jets. So I'm like,
why am I not in a place? How am I not in a place to talk about the Jets?
Well, I just didn't really think you were going to join us for I was about to ask Ezzy, who do the Jets need more from over the final 30 games of the season
as a way to sort of conversation. I don't know anything.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you're currently wandering through the streets of Vegas at 7 a.m. You're more likely.
Yeah, Dave's figuring out which hotel he's going to walk into right now and and drop some money. He doesn't have time to talk about the Jets.
There's Encore, Palazzo. I might go see Trump. We'll see if there's enough time.
That's a good. Is he there?
No, but his hotel's like right here.
Oh, okay. Fair
Anyways,
enough.
so
Well, thanks for joining us.
All right, yeah, it's been a good run. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. 14 years, boys. Time flies like that. Feels like just yesterday. Red River Radio.
And Dave, you've been on the show for all 14 years as well.
Yes,
Well,
hasn't missed an
technically,
episode in 14 years.
Richie
Well,
never existed.
I was going to say, technically, I have not been on since for 14 years. So, of course, I used to join periodically in the Red River days when one of you boys couldn't make it. And then the TSN 1290 days when someone couldn't make it. I was always I was a fill-in, you know, kind of when Kramer had to be a fill-in for the seats. Was it the Emmys or the Oscars?
I thought it was the Tonys. Wasn't it the Tonys?
Oh, it was the Tonys. Yeah, the Scarsdale Surprise.
That's right.
So the reality is that, you know, I was a good seat filler. Then 5-6 years ago, when Rich decided to go in a different direction, I said, "Hey, why not? I'll join you boys." And
Dave, where's Carrot Top right now?
Where's what?
Where's Carrot Top?
That's a good question. Actually, I don't know. I can see the mountains though. If anybody wants to see mountains, then I'll show you guys. And then
Are you gonna go to the Red Rocks?
Yeah, probably tomorrow.
It's a good hike.
Yeah, I know. I've done it before. It's awesome. Valley Fire. Oh, I'll just give everyone, if you can see, there's Trump's Hotel, by the way. And then in the background, there's the mountains.
That's beautiful.
Not something we see in the prairies, but anyways. There you go. That's my walking tour of Vegas, joining the boys, welcoming everyone, thanking everyone for all
Dave's
the
going
support
to go to the hospital
for
now.
14 years. Yeah,
I honestly thought he was just going to walk into traffic at some point in time, just get pancaked like Kenny when he joined us from Denver last year.
Oh, yeah. Kenny did almost get hit by a bus, didn't he? I might actually, there's actually, hold on, I'm right across the street from the $10 everything or less store, so I got to go pick out some presents for you guys.
$10 you're going to spend on us? I'm flattered. We have
$10, Drew, or less.
Well, I mean, we have dollar stores in Winnipeg that you could just hit up instead.
Well, hey, Drew, when I went to 7-Eleven to pick up a cherry Pepsi, as he knows what I'm talking about, so do you actually. But the point is that they have.
Yes, I understand your words.
Yeah, fancy new Twix bars. I mean, America is America, Drew. So who knows what their dollar stores or their fancy $10 or less stores have in their stock? Because, like I said, I went into 7-Eleven. They had Twix, cookie dough Twix. It's a whole new world.
So Dave's coming back with diabetes at the very least, assuming he makes it back.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. Dave, I'm checking in from Vegas, boys.
There he goes, our roving correspondent, Dave Minuk, joining us from Vegas. Enjoy your time. Be well.
Thank you, boys. Yeah.
We'll
I love you,
Dave.
Dave.
Later. Happy anniversary. As he's at your house. I don't know if you knew that.
That's fine. He's got a key.
Okay.
He's got access. Hopefully,
Not
he's
true.
my bed.
I'm at my mother-in-law's house.
Okay, thanks, boys. Thanks, everyone in the chat for supporting us. We appreciate it.
Bye,
Have
Dave.
a good time, Dave.
See ya.
Bye.
No.
There he goes, Dave Minuk, joining us from Vegas, where he's taking in some of the sights and sounds and the nice
It's
weather.
7:20 in the morning there.
Dave's a night owl. I mean, you know how he is, as he likes to do his thing late at night and early in the morning, and wouldn't dare miss a show or anything. He's still listening to us. I can see it. Nobody else can see it, but I can see it behind the scenes here. He's still listening and watching us.
So bring him back
really
in there.
weird. Well, no, I'm not really sure what he's doing. He's just staring at me. It's really kind of creepy at this point in time. Ezzy, let's get back to the Jets, because you good folks have been waiting here for 20 minutes as we ramble inanely more than we normally do. So the question, as I asked, who do the Jets need more from, in your perspective, over the final 30 games of the season? They start Saturday. There's 30 games to go. We know where they are, in the standings. They're second spot in the Central Division. Minnesota's 7 points behind them with 4 games in hand, mind you. The Stars are a point ahead of them. They have a game in hand. Who on the Jets do you need to see more from over the final 30 games?
It's a good question. I mean, there isn't one individual player, I think, that immediately pops in mind. There are some obvious ones. I mean, if you're talking about, needing more offense, I mean, a guy like Adam Lowry is currently in a, 23-24 game goalless streak, but Lowry's been fantastic all year, right? Like, he plays in all situations. He's been doing a lot of face-offs. He's already got 7 goals this year. But so that's one that you could easily pick to. But for me, like, if you're singling out just one player, for me, it's got to be Neil Pionk. And we talked about it last week with Kenny Wiebe. Like, Pionk might be dealing with something. It's possible it's lower body, but like, as a top 4 defenseman on this team, and, I think the second best right shot defenseman on the team. I mean, Dylan DeMello to me is the best defensive defenseman on this team, along with Josh Morrissey. But, Pionk has struggled at times this year. And again, I'm not saying that he's having a bad year or a horrible year or anything like that, because I think, he's had his fair share of really solid games. You remember the, goals that he was scoring earlier in the season.
Yeah.
But I think, we've talked about this a lot. I think everybody knows that what the Jets need is a top 6/top 9 winger and a top 4 defenseman, preferably, I think, on the right side, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about Neil Pionk, I mean, you go back a couple years ago, he was clearly the Jets' best defenseman, putting up career highs in points and everything like that. So, but you could then, go down to the 3rd and 4th lines right now, and you could say, the Jets need more offense out of Morgan Barron, right? Who I think has played very well for the most part this season on the line with Adam Lowry. There have been a lot of different players, right? You currently have Carson Kuhlman there, but you've had, Sam Gagner there. You've had Axel Jonsson-Fjällby there. You've had Saku Maanalainen. So if I wasn't picking individual players, Drew, I would say the bottom 6 as a whole, right?
Sure.
Sam Gagner has been found money, right? What a great signing for under $1 million. But Gagner's been a healthy scratch oftentimes this season, right? I prefer personally, Sam Gagner or Carson Kuhlman over Saku Maanalainen. I just think Maanalainen doesn't give you enough offensively. Sure, he can kill penalties. I really like Kevin Stenlund on that 4th line. I'm not sure what you do once the Gus bus is back, does Stenlund stay at center and then Gustafson's a winger? If your 4th line is Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, Kevin Stenlund, David Gustafsson, or some combination of, let's say Carson Kuhlman, David Gustafsson, Kevin Stenlund, whatever it is, I have no problem with that. But I think right now there's clearly a hole on the right wing. Timo Meier is a guy that we're now hearing the New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers are after him. I just think that the price might be a little bit too high for Timo Meier, regardless of what happens with that big contract, right? Because you have to qualify him at $10 million. But I would have no problem, with the Jets acquiring, whether it's a Jonathan Taves. I've mentioned Sean Monahan before.
Sure.
But a big shutdown defenseman is just as important for me as a top 6 or top 9 forward. But getting back to what you said, yeah.
So hang on. You mentioned it. So does that mean you think the Jets should be more heavily involved in the Gavrikov? Be more interested in him out of Columbus? He's a guy that there were, that the Jets were maybe, I don't want to say linked to, but maybe interested in last year at the trade deadline, if you remember. And I mean, this is a guy who's not going to bring much on the offensive side of things. He's a defensive defenseman first and foremost. But do you think that maybe that he's a guy that the Jets would be kicking the tire? I mean, kicking the tires is such a meaningless phrase, and I apologize for using it, because every team is always kicking the tires. Yeah, but every team is kicking the tires on all the players. I mean, for the most part. But do you think there's maybe the Jets would have more heightened interest in him, or have a more legitimate interest than just a passing fancy in him?
Yeah, I do, Drew. But you hear from Daily Faceoff, Frank Saravalli, you hear that the Leafs are very interested in Gavrikov. You hear that the Oilers are very interested in Gavrikov. Jacob Chikrin is another guy whose name is out there, but I don't know, if the asking price is a 1st-round pick, which for the Jets will obviously not be a high pick, but if it's a 1st-round pick and it's let's say Ville Heinola and plus another player, would you give that up for Jacob Chikrin? I don't know
for if Chikrin, the Jets, because he's got some term, I might. For a guy who's got some term, yes. I mean, for a guy, look, you can past actions often is an indicator of what future action is going to be. Look what the Jets gave up for Paul Stastny. That's, look at Paul Stastny back in the day. So it was a 1st-round pick that was turned out to be in the 20s, late 20s, because the Jets went on the run. And it was Eric Foley. And Eric Foley was a prospect, but I don't think he was at the top of anyone's list as a top prospect for the Jets at that point in time. So it looks like if Kevin Cheveldayoff is interested in trading a 1st-round pick, it's not necessarily, for a rental, it's not going to be a 1st and a prospect for a rental. It's going to be 1st and a B plus, C+ prospect for a rental.
Right. And our friends at Daily Faceoff, what they said was that the asking price for Gavrikov would be similar for David Savard. So you'd be talking about something like a 1st-round draft pick and a 3rd-round draft pick, right? Or like you said, Drew, you'd be talking about a 1st-round pick and a B or C prospect, right? So the asking price for Gavrikov would be a lot lower than the asking price for a guy like Jacob Chychrun. Could the Jets, swing, for the fences and go after a Matthias Ekholm? The only problem is the Predators are, still on the bubble for a playoff spot. Like, I think it's going to be really tough for them to make it, but I have no idea. I have no idea if Ekholm is even an option, right? You just hear rumors. It's all speculation, right? So
right.
Ekholm, Gavrikov. I mean, Luke Schenn is a guy to me that, at best, he's a third pairing defenseman. He's like a number 6, number 7 defenseman. All due respect to Luke Schenn, right? He's had a good career. He's a big physical defenseman, but I just don't know if that moves the needle. Like, you have to look at this like, you're going to be competing with other teams for these players, like you said earlier, right? So you're talking about the Vegas Golden Knights, you're talking about the Dallas Stars, the Colorado Avalanche, the top teams in the Western Conference. We mentioned the Oilers, who have been playing very well lately. I believe they're either third in the division or in a wild card spot right now, but they're clearly right. So, I mean, the Oilers are going to be buyers, right? Like when you have McDavid and Draisaitl the way they're playing this year.
And they're getting goaltending from, whether or not Stu Skinner's going to do it, and Jack Campbell are going to do it in the playoffs. They're getting goaltending. I mean, the Oilers are 3 points behind behind Seattle and Los Angeles, but they have 3 games in hand on the Kings. So they're right in the thick of the top of the Pacific Division.
And we all know what they need. I mean, they need defensemen, right? They need a top 4 defenseman. So Chychrun's name is out there. Gavrikov's name is out there. I mean, we all know the names that are on the trade bait board, right? So, but going back to your question, Drew, I mean, like, there have been some obviously, career years for the Jets this year, and they've had trouble scoring goals this year. So, I mean, like, Blake Wheeler can be providing more offense, right? Like, you could be getting, Pierre-Luc Dubois' goal scoring has dried up a little bit, not that much, but just a little bit, right? So you need more goal scoring. And obviously, Cole Perfetti is playing his best hockey of the year, and he was dealing with a little bit of a slump there, right? So I there isn't one or two obvious guys that stand out, because the team, this stretch, this last 8 or 9 games, I mean, look at it. You could even go back, I put this on Twitter, the first 32 games of the season, they were something like 21-10 and 1, 21-10 and 1, and then their last 21, they've been 1 game over 500, something like 11 and 10,
11 and 9, something like that.
11, 9 and 1, I believe, right? So that's just barely above 500. So, a quarter of the season here, the Jets have been just treading water, right? Like, maintaining second in the Central. We've talked about it, right? The Avalanche are 6 points back with 3 games in hand. Like, it wasn't too long ago, the Avalanche were like 13 or 14 points behind the Jets. So
8 points back now with 4 games in hand. But your point is well taken on that one.
Yeah, I mean, the Avalanche, I wouldn't be surprised if the Avalanche win the Central Division. Would you, Drew?
No, not in the least bit. Everyone's been waiting for that push. And no, to expect them to not break into that top 3 or not to continue pushing would be a little surprising. Of course, if Cale Makar keeps wiping out as he's participating in fastest skater competitions, that every Avalanche fan and the entire team sort of held their breath when that happened. Let's head to break, Ezzy. When we come back, Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press is going to join us. 14th anniversary show of Illegal Curve. Don't go anywhere. We're live on this Saturday morning. Bottom of the hour, we welcome to the program our good friend from the Winnipeg Free Press, Mike McIntyre, joins us on the show, celebrating 14 years. We are here on Illegal Curve. Mike, Gary Bettman just celebrated 30 years, and you called for the end of his tenure. What are you going to do to us for celebrating 14 years?
Well, it means you guys got 16 more years.
God help us all.
Yeah, so I've got that column in the back pocket, which I guess 2039, I guess. All right. Calling for the end of Illegal. Guys, I must have missed the memo, though. I'm a little worried. Are we not missing someone here today?
He went away for our anniversary. He decided to leave.
Gotcha.
So he's enjoying some sunnier weather. Well, he did join us. He joined us as he was walking into a local shop on the Strip in Vegas about
very nice
20 minutes ago. So he's with us in spirit, if he's not with us in physical presence.
I assumed he just found like a fire pit somewhere that he was going to go hang around. Guys, I was looking what the traditional 14th anniversary gift is, and it's a little controversial. I don't know if you know this, but ivory was traditionally the 14th wedding anniversary gift. Now, of course, ivory, there's a lot of bad connotations with that. So apparently, instead of ivory now, just elephants, or at least the premise of an elephant has become the traditional 14th gift. So I don't have an elephant for you, but I'm happy to talk about the elephant in the room if
very
if
nice.
there is one.
I have the White Stripes album Elephant, Mike.
Oh, well, I guess I could have got you that. You probably have it already, though, Ezzy. I know you're a big fan.
I am, but yeah, it's funny that there actually is, like, you can actually Google that, and there's something that you're supposed to get your significant other for 14, right? Because it's obviously like it's pretty meaningless. It's not a multiple of 5, which is the next one is the big one. But yeah, we'll take a stuffed elephant or something like that.
I was hoping like newsprint or something would have been and then I could have just got you a copy of the Free Press, but no such luck.
I already got my copy of the Free Press upstairs. You don't need to, and I'm not even going to re-gift it. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to reuse it, so that you don't need to worry about that.
Are you going to use it like to line an animal's cage, or
no? Oh. We are going to read it thoroughly, like we do every Saturday morning. My wife and I subscribe to the Free Press every Saturday, and of course read it online during the week. And then oftentimes what we will, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not going to meet an untimely end, but it might meet an untimely end in our fire pit later on this summer when we need a little bit of extra kindling to get the blaze going. But we will read it top to bottom first, and we will do. And when it does meet the fire pit, we'll do so with sorrow in our heart, undoubtedly.
And expect a Dave Minuk Twitter picture, I'm sure.
Naturally, I mean, we have the dog that he can borrow, and he brings sushi over on his own. So yes, exactly. As long as there's a fire pick, a dog pick, and a Dave pick, and a sushi pick, we're all good. Mike obviously brought you on to talk not about our usual nonsense, but about the Winnipeg Jets and about some of your recent columns. And I asked Ezzy this question before we brought you on. 30 games to go, 30 regular season games to go. And there's been all the talk about Neil Pionk and his struggles over the last little while. From your perspective, if there was one player, maybe it is Neil Pionk, if there's one player that the Jets need more from over the final 30 games, who is that one player?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. We talk about Neil Pionk. If you talk about more from him, like the guy's already set a career high for goals. And, he did that basically at the midway point of the season. But of course, there's a lot more to playing defense than scoring goals, although the Jets have done that, almost better than any team. Rick Bowness made offense from the defense a priority, and they sure have. And that's been, a big part of what the Jets have done this year is the way they've integrated their defensemen. And to a degree, Neil Pionk, we obviously deservedly so talk about Josh Morrissey, but Neil Pionk, he's added some offense from the blue line. The problem is his play in his own end has really struggled at times. And I think in a year where we would probably all agree that the Jets have cleaned up their act in a lot of ways compared to, say, a year ago, and certain players that maybe struggled at times last year, Brendan Dillon, for example, I think he's been a lot better in his own end. Even Josh Morrissey has been better in his own end, clearly. But Neil Pionk has really struggled with his puck management and some of the decisions he's made. And, it's led to speculation he's injured. For what it's worth, and I say this, take it with a grain of salt. He says he's okay. I don't really believe that, but obviously the coaching staff, if he is battling an injury, they don't believe it's one that prevents him from being in the lineup. But it is telling that, just before the break, I actually asked Rick Bowness about Neil Pionk's play, and he didn't exactly give the defenseman a ringing endorsement. He admitted they need a lot more. And it's funny, guys, I go back to when we sat down about a month ago with Kevin Cheveldayoff in Buffalo for his kind of mid-season chit chat. And, he talked about how we have a lot of players on this team having career years or near career years. And then he said, but we do have some that, we need more from. And of course, Kevin Cheveldayoff wasn't naming names, but when I left that chat, I thought, well, he's talking about Neil Pionk. So for sure, I mean, I know there's a lot of people would just like to see Neil Pionk as a trade chip going the other way. I don't know if Kevin Cheveldayoff is wanting to delete from this roster. I think if he wants to reward this roster for its good play, he's looking to make ads without making deletions. But then again, if there's some money issues that have to be managed, I mean, I guess never say never. It's just I wouldn't hold my breath expecting Neil Pionk to be shipped out of town anytime soon. But what the Jets do need, agreed, is more from Neil Pionk. And I think he'd be at the top of the list. You know, another guy who was certainly off to a tremendous start this year, but has really gone cool on the offensive side is Adam Lowry. But I don't think anybody would say, well, you need, I mean, Adam Lowry's not in the lineup to score goals. But, you know, it would be nice, I guess, to get a little more, you know, kind of what we saw in the first part of the season from a guy like Lowry, you know, with that additional depth scoring that the Jets have had quite a bit of this year.
And, you know, to further to your point, those are both the guys I mentioned, by the way, Mike. So, you know, brilliant minds think alike, as you know, right? But the one thing
be very, very afraid, Mike. That's the flip side to that. Be very, very afraid.
But, you know, when you're talking about Lowry, Mike, and you may disagree with this, but like he seemed like the way he plays, right? We know Rick Bonus's system is much more up tempo, much more demanding on the players. Like he seemed like a guy to me, especially the last couple of weeks leading up into this break. Like he needs a rest, right? With all the big minutes he plays on the PK, sure. And you know he can drop the mitts. You know he plays a physical style. So I agree with you, and I expect the goals to come. Like 23, 24 games without a goal. I mean, I think it's a little bit absurd at this point. You know he's going to score eventually, and he has been getting opportunities. So I agree with both of those guys.
Yeah, and I mean, again, Adam Lowry's contributions are unquestionably solid in a lot of areas. The penalty kill obviously is reinvigorated for the Jets, and Adam Lowry is a big part of that. But you're right, as he look at the way the Jets have scored so many goals this year. They're scoring Adam Lowry type goals, not the dazzling highlight reel, but the dirty areas, go to the net, you know, tips, deflections, rebounds, like Adam Lowry specialties. But I think one thing we've seen with the Jets, guys, and it, you know, when they got this infusion of talent back in early January, like when all the injured guys came back, the Jets at times have gotten away from that meat and potatoes style, and they've tried to skill it up too much. Mm-hmm. Now, Adam Lowry's not guilty of that, of course, but you know, certain other players certainly have been guilty of overpassing and trying to get too cute. And, you know, I think that ties in with why the Jets kind of struggled into the All-Star break the way they did, because they got away from the blueprint that worked. And so I agree. I mean, the break was good for Adam Lowry. I think the break was just good for everybody. They all needed a reset, and, you know, they come back next weekend, and I expect the Jets to put a real focus on getting back to, you know, what got them here, if you will, for these last 30.
And Mike, we want to get into your article that you column today, 12 ways to improve the NHL. I agree with all of them except for one. We're going to get into the kicking the puck into the net. That's the one I wasn't in agreement with, but we will let you defend yourself here. But
yes,
you know, we were obviously, there's almost exactly a month, I think a month less a day before the NHL trade deadline. I mean, everyone across the hockey world is focused on that. I'm at my mother-in-law's and the doorbell's ringing, and I see Poulin's Exterminators here, so I might have to leave momentarily, Mike. So I'll ask you a question, and then I'll just go talk to the Poulin's Exterminators guy. I know that my mother-in-law's had some mice in her house here.
This is a hell of an operation we're running here. As you go do what you need to do.
No, Mike, I want to get my question out, but Mike, you know, with the trade deadline coming up, I mean, you know, you've heard names like Timo Meier. You had your column about, you know, Jonathan Taves, you know, Vladislav Gavrikov's another guy out there, Luke Shen, Sean Monahan. Like, is there one player right now that stands out to you that, you know, the Jets are going to want to acquire? Or do you think we might see a repeat of 2018 and there might be a guy that, you know, nobody expected coming? Obviously, you know, I'm referring to Paul Stastny. Now I'm going to go talk to the Poulin's Exterminators guy, and then I will be right back, boys.
See if you can sign him up as a sponsor.
I'm pretty sure he's coming to exterminate Ezzy from his mother-in-law's house.
Well, I was going to say, like,
happening.
I've heard of some, you know, rocky relationships between mother-in-laws, but for her to call the Exterminator just because he's over today, my goodness, that seems like
blame her, really, though.
Right, as he is a bit of a rat, I guess. So, you know, on the question of, for sure, there's a lot of names out there, and look, nothing would surprise me with Kevin Cheveldayoff if there isn't an off the radar guy nobody's talking about. I think one thing, if you're the Jets, there's two categories. There's obviously the pure rental category, and we've seen the Jets go that route before. But I think, given the uncertainty that Winnipeg has with several core players, Scheifele, Dubois, Hellebuck, Wheeler obviously is also a UFA. I mean, if they could find, and this is why a guy like Meyer is so intriguing, right? If they could add a guy who helps immediately, but also that they could lock up or get under contract long term, almost as an insurance policy against maybe losing one of those other guys, I think that becomes a really intriguing move as well. I guess I just don't know are they doing that move by the trade deadline? Is that something more for the summer when they get maybe a little more clarity? And again, these are questions I don't know the answers to. I can't tell you today that the Jets have any clarity on what's going to happen with Dubois, Scheifele, and or Hellebuck. I'm sure they'd love some direction from those guys, because at least by the summer, they're really going to have to make some decisions based on what is or isn't happening with those guys. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a few other names thrown out there. Max Domi's an interesting name. He's a guy the Jets have long Kevin Cheveldayoff has long liked Max Domi.
Allegedly they were going to be drafting him until they got swooped by, who was it? I guess it was Arizona, right? Back.
It was.
He's bounced around a bunch since then, but he was supposed to go to the Jets if Arizona didn't take him.
Morrissey's worked out quite nicely, I'd say, though, boys.
Yeah, he has. Now, I mean, Max Domi's interesting because I can't imagine the acquisition cost would be massive. And if he's a guy they like, he's also leading the Blackhawks in scoring, which is interesting. I mean, somebody's got to. But they do have Taves and Kane. Like, he's having a better season than Patrick Kane, who's not having a great year. And the acquisition cost on a guy like that, I expect, is going to be a lot higher. Taves is interesting to me because there's talk, as I wrote a few weeks ago, that he could be had for as little as like a third-round draft pick. It's the money.
Sure.
And again, there's not a whole lot of teams that can fit his cap hit without roster surgery. The Jets would be one of them. And then there's, the hometown connection is a nice angle, but I think there's a lot more to it. We talk about things the Jets could be better at. And I know there's debate about the importance or not of faceoffs. All I can say is Rick Bowness, he thinks faceoffs are important, and his team gets slaughtered in the dot on a regular basis.
Right. So, I mean, the face-off debate, Mike, I mean, and both, I don't think either side is wrong per se, but they're just looking at it through different lenses.
Right.
Looking at it from a micro perspective, as in we need to win this specific face-off.
Yes.
If you're up a goal with 12 seconds to go and the face-offs in your own zone, then face-offs are important. On the macro sense of it, but over the entirety of the year, it's not a big deal one way or the other. Over the course of the year, it's not something you necessarily need to put a premium on.
No.
In free agency at the beginning of the season, but it's something that you might want to acquire as long as the guy can also play for those key moments towards the end of a game when you're in a playoff stretch drive or you're in an actual playoff game.
And the problem for the Jets right now is they just don't have anybody you can reliably throw. I mean, Kevin Stenlund is their best face-off man, and he's like at, 52, 53%, and that's in a smaller body of work. Adam Lowry of the regulars, the Dubois and Scheifele, like Lowry, and he's basically a coin flip. Like, he's right around 50%. Jonathan Taze is what, 64, 60?
Yeah.
Like, he's winning 2/3 of his draws. So you're right. You don't pay a premium for that, but a third round, a second round draft pick, that's not a premium for a guy that's won multiple Stanley Cups. Still, I think has some game in him. He wouldn't be coming here to play in your top six, but I think he could be a nice piece to put in your bottom six that, could also kill penalties, could maybe on the second power play unit, and like you say, win some faceoffs. And he would also be insurance guys. Let's not forget, there was a stretch this year where the Jets were using the likes of Carson Kuhlman, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, Christian Reichel,
Morgan Barron,
Michael Asamont, like all those guys were playing in the top 6. I don't think you want, if you're planning on a long playoff run,
Right.
as nice as those guys filled in, you'd like to have better options should you need them. You hope you don't need them, but if you do, it's not the worst thing to be prepared. So Taze is intriguing to me, but for sure, I mean, I'm all for Kevin Cheveldayoff taking a mighty cut at the plate and trying to land a Meyer. I think the cost would be significant, and the Horvat trade probably sets the table a little bit.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Mike. That, I mean, Timo Meyer and Horvat aren't, I mean, different positions,
different contract situations.
But I think you're right. What the Canucks got for Horvat would be similar to what, the Devils or the Rangers or the Jets would have to give up for Meyer.
Well, so let me ask that question to you, Mike. Is that from your perspective, looking at the Jets situation, looking at where they are in the standings, look at the contracts that are on the books, and
right.
A little bit about what they have in the cupboard, and what what they have that would be coming to them based on draft picks? How much is too much for the Jets to be giving up at this point in time? Ezzy and I were talking about it. Stastny, when you go back to that acquisition, it was a first round pick that turned out to be a very late first round pick.
Yeah.
And Eric Foley, who was not an A prospect from my if I recall correctly. So, how much is too much for the Jets to give up in acquiring a player at this deadline?
Well, I'm a believer, guys, that really no price is too high, because I think the Jets should be doing everything possible to go all in. This is the year. It's the year for a couple of reasons, because as I mentioned, you have no idea. We don't have any idea anyways what is going to happen with Hellebuyck, Dubois, and Scheifele. If all three of those guys indicate that they're not willing to sign extensions, long-term extensions, and I assume the Jets would like to sign those guys, then to me, you got to move them next summer. You don't go into next season now with them now being able to walk right into free agency. And then I guess you could use them as a trade deadline chip next year. But to me, that's not a sound strategy. And I think, you'd move them to a team that could have them at least for a full year. And so you get a little bit more back from them. And then maybe that team, who, depending on the situation, maybe they sign them and then you get a lot more back from them. So for the reason that you have no idea what's going to happen beyond this season, you have to live in the moment in a way here. The other big reason, and the bigger reason to me, is the West is just wide open. It is there for the taking. There is no dominant team. The Jets are right there with the likes of Dallas and Seattle. And who would have predicted that would be the top three at the All-Star break in terms of win percentage? But that's the case. Colorado, they still scare me, and they look like they're starting to get their act together. So
Vegas loses Mark Stone indefinitely, this week,
which I guess may free up some money now for them to do something, but still they don't look like their usual dominant selves. I guess I would say Colorado might still prove to be a dominant team in the West. They're kind of sleeping giants who seem to be waking up. That being said, to me, the West is absolutely winnable. The division is winnable. And look, the Jets are coming off a few seasons of significant losses, revenue, attendance, because of COVID and other factors. There's some excitement in the air around this team. Like, this is the time to go all in. And in that sense, if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, for once, I'm not worrying so much about the future. I'm living in the moment.
I agree with you 100%, Mike. And when you think about, the first round picks they've had lately, right? Like, they just had a couple with Rutger McGroarty and Brad Lambert, Chaz Lucius, right? So you have the first round pick, it's going to be late, whatever it ends up being. Like, it's not going to be anywhere close to the top 15 or 16, right? So you're talking about 24th or 25th overall pick. Plus you have some prospects. Like, you've got some prospects that you can deal, especially on the left side of the defense, right? But I want to transition to the column that we talked about in today's Winnipeg Free Press. It's titled Bye Bye Bettman. And I was actually thinking about that recently. Like, I was kind of thinking, when will Gary retire? Because that's a long time. And you have to think that, you know, it's coming eventually. He's not going to be commissioner forever. All things, you know, good things come to an end. But, you know, I want to get into some of these suggestions because I'll let you kind of talk about the article and the impetus for the article. But like when you're talking about, you know, having a longer overtime and, you know, head contact, I'm just going over it right now here on my other browser. Limiting the use of offside challenges. We were talking about that a couple of weeks ago. Like, I think there's been way too much video review, but just, you know, what was the impetus for the article? I don't necessarily know if I agree with you on the kicking, letting guys kick pucks into the net and letting that count. But the other 11 ones, I'm in complete agreement with you.
So I should have been a little clear because I have got a few emails on the kicking saying, what do you want someone to like have their artery severed? I'm not advocating that guys should, you know, employ bicycle kicks. And what I should have said is, to make it a little more clear, like the directing pucks into net with feet, where guys are angling their feet to have it deflect. And I mean, you know, it's still a gray area at times what is or isn't a distinct kicking motion. Sometimes it's just the simple act of just moving the foot slightly is and we see it at times where it's actually quite a skilled play, but it's penalized. So yeah, I'm not as gung-ho on that one. I'm just in favor of more offense, and I hate seeing goals taken off the board. Goalie interference ones I get, even though I don't understand goalie interference still. I don't know that anybody does, including the NHL. The impetus for the article was, of course, there was a report this week that TV ratings are plummeting south of the border, 22% this year over last on the US deal with ESPN and TNT. You know, less people are watching the product. And, you know, I see a lot of complaints about what the reason for that. And, you know, they offer up some explanations. They're offering more games this year, which has maybe diluted the average viewership. There's more more fragmentation. And I get that those are all reasons for sure. I just think, you know, my take was, look, if the NHL is just going to, and Gary Bettman's going to talk before the All-Star game today. And as I wrote in the piece, I expect he'll just say everything's fine. Everything's great. You know, he always does. But the fact of the matter is,
sorry, Mike, just to cut you off. Sorry. Like one of them, I'll let you continue here, but one of them is the digital advertising. Like I haven't talked to one person that not only that doesn't like it, but I haven't talked to one person that doesn't find it annoying. So Gary Bettman, obviously,
you guys know,
it just makes no sense. Smart. It's distracting.
The owners like it. The owners like it because it generates revenue. And so as long as it generates revenue,
they're losing viewers because of it, Drew.
They are. I hear people all the time say it's become unwatchable. You know, it's distracting. And then that's not even, you know, there's all these still images out there on social media of like players being decapitated, you know, just players disappearing. It's ridiculous.
It's like you're going back to the Fox puck era, Mike.
Right. And so here's the thing I don't understand about the revenue part. Okay, so sure, you're able to sell more ads, but are you not then taking away from the ads that are already on the boards? Like those are getting less exposure now.
Yep.
So, and I know, I mean, I guess those people aren't, the NHL or the teams aren't going back to those sponsors saying, well, here's a refund because your ad's being seen now 30% less than it used to be. But yeah, I mean, some things, it's just not worth the added revenue. And to me, this is a self-inflicted one. So many of these are self-inflicted. Guys, I have nothing against sports betting, sports gambling, nothing at all. It's just, to me, some of the broadcasts have become so obnoxious with the way it is shoved down people's throats.
That's a Canadian thing more than an American thing, because the rules in the US regarding advertising, you know, and cut-ins like you're talking about, because you know, as everyone knows, I place my fair share of betting, so I have no problem with wagering as well. But the Canadian thing where they jump in and then jump out, it's so, you know, that doesn't happen on the US broadcast. So that's a Canadian thing that the CRTC or whomever, you know, is our government authority can step in on.
And, you know, to me, like when Ron McLean is now sort of shilling during Hockey Night, like that's, to me, you've jumped the shark. You've gone too far. And it's just, there are times it feels like you're watching a betting show with a little bit of hockey spliced in.
Well, it's because it's inauthentic is my big complaint with it.
For sure.
It is, and not that, we need to toot our own horn here, but I'll do it because Spency's our boy. He says that we, because we have a gambling sponsor. Betway is a sponsor of our
Sure.
show, and we appreciate it. But we're not, when Betway came aboard, we didn't change our format. We didn't all of a sudden take a sharp left turn and become gambling centric and hockey secondary, whereas the broadcasts have done that, and they've made it so shamelessly that they can't even do it where it feels natural or it feels legitimate. It's just, like you said, I don't disagree with your point there. It's just that there's just such an inauthenticity to how they do it that it makes it obnoxious.
Yeah, maybe they eventually rein it in. It's still in a way a bit of a shiny new toy that they're playing with, I guess. And I got to think they're hearing feedback. I'm certainly hearing it. You see it on social media. They can't be immune to it. So maybe they rein it in a bit. But yeah, I mean, to me, the headshot one, guys, I just, and I've seen Alan Walsh and other agents advocate for it. Like, remove the gray area. You drill a guy in the head. I don't care if it was intentional or not. I don't care if the primary point of contact was the shoulder. If you end up hitting a guy in the head, to me, make it a major. See ya. Come back next game. If you're not suspended, depending on the severity of it, like, just, you got to make guys more aware of where they're hitting, and
it's like the targeting rule in college football.
I'm
not sure if you're a college football guy, Mike, but in college football, if they think that there's a play where it's targeting, basically where anyone's using their helmet primarily or using any other part of the body to hit their opponent in their head, they stop the game, they review it, and then they can kick the guy out of the game. And then what happens is it takes a while and there's some ugliness to get through, to that point, get it wading through the muck, but eventually players learn that you can't target the head. And that's,
and we're seeing that it's happening at various lower levels of hockey, and I think for a good reason. You have to almost retrain a whole generation of players who've been so accustomed to one thing. But yeah, I mean, I just went through kind of my own personal list, along with things I often hear from fans and readers, things that bug them, and just some of them are ticky-tack. I said I'd like to see home teams start wearing white again. I'd like to see the road darks come to town as opposed to always the white sweaters, so when the Detroits or the Montreals or Torontos come here, I want to see their darks.
And for the younger viewers, Mike, that used to be the case. I forget what the year was, like if it was the early 2000s or the late 90s. I forget exactly, but that used to be the case, that the home team would wear white.
Right around the midway.
The AHL flips. The AHL flips now. I mean, there's no reason why the NHL can't also flip. It's not like it's a difficult. I'm sure they can find a way to sell some new jerseys at it, so they'll maybe offset the loss of the digital board advertisements as a result.
And then another one which I see. Certainly there's player support, it would seem, would be to extend 3-on-3 overtime. Just try and eliminate the shootout. Like, I saw an interesting stat. I think it's only 6.5% of all games this year have gone to a shootout. But the number is shrinking for sure.
Have the Jets played one yet?
They have not.
They have not. Yeah, they haven't. I mean, I was trying to think if they won one in the shootout,
which is kind of crazy, boys, because we're 52 games in.
I know, but I think, what are they, 6-1 or 7-1 in overtime, like
something like that? Yeah, I mean,
and so like 93,
7-1 in overtime,
7-1. So the majority of games that get to overtime, they're already ending within the 5 minutes. But for the 6.5%, if that's what the number is, and I read, I think it was an Associated Press story that had that number. I see guys like Connor McDavid at the All-Star game this week were saying, I'd like to see it extended. So make it 10 minutes then. And that 6.5%, I would think, almost becomes 0%. You got to think most games would end. And I guess if they're still tied after 10, all right, use the stupid shootout. But, I think 3-on-3 has proven to be a ratings draw. Sure. I don't think shootouts are, I know for me personally, if a game ends, if overtime ends without a winner, like, that's time for me to click the channel if I'm just surfing around games. And speaking of surfing around games, this is a huge bee in my bonnet, guys. The NHL, talk about self-inflicted. They'll have nights where there's like 6 or 7 games and they all start at the same time. And so, we have the NHL Center Ice package. I like to flip around and watch games. Nothing gets me angrier than when every game is on the intermission at the same time. It makes no sense. I don't care if it means starting games at 7:10, 7:20. Do something to at least stagger them a bit.
Well, they do it in the playoffs. I mean,
Right.
they do it in the playoffs because we know how, let's assume the Jets are going to end up making the playoffs. Those home games for the Jets might very well start at 8, 8:30, because they don't, they start the first game at 6 or 6:30 or, whatever time. And they'll start the late game, at a staggered time because they don't want to divide the eyeballs. The fact that they know to do it in the postseason, but not in the regular season, it's just, like you said, it doesn't have to be on the 30 minutes. It can be 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever time you need to set it up, or just, the NFL does it all the time. That's why not, the later games, not the night games, but the later window doesn't all start at 3:25. Some of them are at 3:05. Some of them are at 3:25. So
let me add one more, guys. I wrote this column yesterday afternoon and filed it. But if I could go back in time, I'd probably add a 13th thing based on all the reaction I saw. Eliminate whatever the hell that was last night. Now, I got to be honest. I watched maybe the first 20 minutes of it, and then I actually went and watched my son's beer league hockey game last night, which I can tell you was a lot more exciting based on everything I've heard about the skills competition. Talk about a league that was probably trying too hard to be cute and relevant. And
well, I watched more of it than I care to admit, Mike. To me, like the one
Drew was actually eating Chipotle while watching that pitch and puck.
Yeah, those ones, like the surfboard one with the dunk tank, was kind of fun. It moved. It was fun. It was okay. The golf one was a little bit interesting. It was the events that were in the arena, like for the live audience, as opposed to the ones that were earlier in the day and pre-taped. That Tendy Tandem one. You have to be a scholar to figure out what the hell the rules were in that one. I'm watching this and I'm thinking, what? And my kids are watching with me. And they're like, Dad, what's happening? And I'm like, I'm sorry, children. I know this is upsetting to learn that Dad doesn't have all the answers, but I did not know what the hell was going on in that event. It was just, it must have been tedious for the crowd, the limited crowd that was in attendance, because it certainly wasn't sold out in South Florida.
No. Well, the other complaint I saw from people, and again, I didn't see a lot of the events, but a lot of people said it looked like some of the players, like they weren't even trying. Has it become uncool to try put in like, so you just go through the motion? But I mean, if that's the case, then why are we even having this event?
I will say though that I do really like the inclusion of female players. Like I really like the fact, like Sarah Nurse had a nice move on Shesterkin, right? So like, and I believe there were 4 or 5 female players, right? So I think, and I agree. And the thing is, Mike, like, for you have to pretend that you care about it, right? Like, I think that's what everybody really does, right? Like even, the most hardcore fans, like they take it with a grain of salt. Like I really thought it was cool that, Josh Morrissey was in there with, Elias Pettersson, Alex Ovechkin, Rasmus Dahlin. I think he finished 3rd or 2nd in the hardest shot, right? So like, Hellebuck obviously won the Tendy Tandem event. So for Jets fans, like, I mean, you have to look at this with a glass half full, right? Because if you don't look at it that way, then for the most part, it's all ridiculous. One thing I know, Mike, we got to let you go here pretty soon, but one other thing in this article that I really liked, I mean, I liked the article as a whole, but and the thing too I wanted to mention was a lot of these are so common sense, right? Like you mentioned, like most people watching us, like these ideas, they aren't like you think about them and extending over time, like it makes so much sense.
Reinventing the wheel, no,
exactly. Well, so you hope that the NHL, over the next several years, you hope that some of these, actually do take place, because you mentioned the players, Connor McDavid, they favor a 10-minute 3-on-3 overtime as opposed to the shootout. And if you only have 6% of games going to a shootout, like it's time to, get rid of it essentially. But the one thing I wanted to mention just quickly is I really like the idea of having the officials speak after games, because this is something, that you've heard about, but for the accountability and the transparency, Mike, like that's something that, especially this year, it seems like the officiating has been kind of at an all-time low this year. And, we've seen a lot of questionable calls in Jets games, but it seems like this is something that if it's not, officials speaking to the media, there has to be something more done to hold officials accountable after games.
For sure. And again, we go back to the rise of gambling and sports betting. And, if the NHL wants to be taken seriously as a property that you can, wager with some confidence on, I think they have major steps that need to be taken to improve things like transparency and accountability, which are not there right now. And I'm not saying, guys, that a referee, should be put up at the podium and have like 15 reporters in the rink just firing hardballs at him. I am saying at the very least, like a pool reporter should be able to get a comment or two about a key call or a missed call in real time that can be passed on to the audience. And I don't see, the NBA does that. They
final 5-minute report.
Right. They just botched a huge call against LeBron James the other day, and they put out a full transparent statement admitting to it and that we got to be better. And like, to me, I realize you can't go back and fix it. You can't go back and change it. What you can do, though, is explain it so that hopefully people come away and say, all right, I'm still not happy, but at least now I got, some additional information on that. And hopefully it doesn't happen again. That's all anybody's asking for. I think it's cowardly to kind of hide behind the whole sanctity of, referees aren't allowed to talk. Well, let's change that.
Well, especially because the explanations that come out of the situation room after any sort of challenge aren't in fact explanations. They just recap what happened.
Right. It's copy and paste from the rule book.
It is.
Exactly. It's like that doesn't shed any light on anything to anyone. We all know what we saw, but walk us through the mindset and everything else. And it doesn't even, like you said, it doesn't have to be, it can be exactly how the NBA does it, except for the fact that the NHL is, they're terrified of transparency for whatever reason. I don't know if it's, it's, I don't know what that logic is. I don't know if it's that they'd have to pay the officials more if you're putting them in the line of fire on a daily basis, but whatever it might be, it's time. Again, it needs to be brought into 2023 with the mindset, I would say.
I go back just to the one that stands out to me this year, guys, in Dallas, Connor Hellebuck's mask. To me, there was never an explanation from the NHL about why the play wasn't blown dead. There's one where Garrett Rank, the referee, he should have to say, well, either I didn't see it, I didn't notice that his mask was off, or I did, but I felt that Winnipeg never had possession. Like there's all kinds of ways that should have been explained that weren't, and it ended up being a very key play. Dallas tied the game. It went to overtime. But we could go through the whole season and you could find all kinds of reasons. I just think it's time for a change.
Mike McIntyre is with the Winnipeg Free Press. He's a good friend of the show. Mike, we appreciate your time and insight as always. We'll let you get on with your Saturday morning. And as he needs some exterminating done, if you have a little bit of spare time, you can fill in this morning.
So the guy said that they'd already come here to do whatever they do for the mice. And he said that, they were here to do a second application or something. And I mentioned that my mother-in-law is not in town right now and won't be for a long time. So that's what that was all about.
So good.
So I guess I'll just have to kill the mice on my own, Mike.
So you told them that the house is empty so they can come back and case the joint further. I'm sure she appreciates that.
The folks at Poulin's Exterminators are not going to do that.
the mice will still be there when she comes back. The jewelry might be gone though. That's the difference right now.
I think mice that's the 13th anniversary gift, guys. So they're a year too late on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Mike, thank you for this, buddy.
Cheers, Mike.
Guys. Happy
we'll do it again real soon.
Take care.
Take care. Bye. Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
You should have asked Mike how many years he's been married.
You can text him, and you can find out.
Because you're at what, 11 now?
I will be at 11 this year. In April, I will be at 11, which is hard to believe.
And I'm approaching 6, which is really hard to believe.
That is hard. That seems like
you didn't even think I'd make it to 1 year, Drew.
I never thought you would get married. Never mind make it to a year. I just never assumed you'd get married. That's more likely what my thinking was. Let's go to break. We're way over time. We'll come back. We got more things to do. And 10:30 this morning until the end of the show. AIA. Ask Illegal Curve anything. So you guys can put your questions in the chat. We will see what we see, and we will put it on the screen, and we'll talk about it. So get your questions ready starting at 10:30 this morning. It can be hockey related. It can be nonsense related. Ask Illegal Curve anything for the final 30 minutes on this morning's show. We're celebrating 14 years of Illegal Curve broadcasts.
Woo!
Maybe we'll play what it sounded like when we debuted up next. You're listening to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you, but why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whitened my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs, from restorative to cosmetic dentistry, and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Big thanks to Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press for joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. 14 years ago today, we began this fine program, and God willing, if this works, let's hear what it sounded like. Well, I'll keep talking for a second. Eventually, this might play. Like I said, the technology is a little hit or miss. It's been hit or miss for the last 14 years. So there's no reason why it would be any different at this point in time.
Welcome to the inaugural LegalCurve.com radio show. I'm your host, Drew. I'm joined in studio tonight.
This is our first show on Kick FM, Drew, that you're going to play?
To the left of me, I have Richard Pollock. Richard, say good evening to the nice people.
Good evening, everybody.
To the right of me,
well, do you have it queued up or what? What's happening here?
Say good evening to the
Can you not hear it?
Hello, everybody. Hello,
I can't
Red
hear it.
River audience.
Oh, you can't hear it? That's
this
weird.
Is awesome.
I can hear it.
There we go.
I thought everybody
good
would be able
from
to hear
Ezzy
it.
there. A little bit about us. We are your one-stop shop for all your hockey news. You can catch us 24 hours a day.
Well, maybe it didn't work because I could hear it. I could hear it in my headphones. The folks in the chat can tell me if they heard it or not because I thought it should have worked. I thought I had it all. See, they're telling me they can hear it. Why can't you hear it, Ginsburg?
Never heard it.
Okay, well, let's try it again. Maybe I can start it again. See if you can hear it this time. I don't know. Unmute your mic, maybe. I don't know. You figure it out. I can hear it. I don't know why you can't. Hear it.
7 days a week, 365 days a year at triple.
Well, I don't know. This.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba, and to all those listening in on www.kick.fm. Good evening, universe. And
I still
welcome
can't
to
believe
the
it's been 14
inaugural
years. I mean, it's been
LegalCurve.com
incredible.
radio show.
Unfortunately, I couldn't hear that
I'm your
clip. I'd
host,
like to hear
Drew.
it, but
I'm joined in
everybody else
studio
heard it, so
tonight
that's all that
by my
matters, right?
usual band of
Exactly. I don't really care if you
co-conspirators.
heard it or not,
To the
as long as
left
the
of me, I
audience
have
can hear it.
Richard Pollock. Richard, say good evening to the nice people.
Good evening,
I thought
everybody.
Richard's doing a great
To the
job on
right of
today's
me,
show as well,
Ezra
is what I was
Ginsburg.
thinking.
Ezzy, say good evening
Yes,
to the nice
it
people.
is the same
Hello,
intro
everybody.
since the very
Hello, Red
beginning,
River
Spencer. I
audience.
haven't
Let's
evolved
go.
at
This is
all
awesome.
in the last
There we go.
14 years
Good intro from
whatsoever.
Ezzy there. A little bit about us.
you
We
still
are
playing
your
it, Drew?
one-stop.
Yeah, I'm still playing it. I got the whole.
Okay.
I got.
Well, I don't know. I
all
can't
the
hear it. So, I mean, you got to tell me when it stopped playing. So, I'm not
stopped-
sure what you want me to do here.
I stopped playing it. I've
It's
stopped.
just I
playing.
can't, I guess, Drew.
Yes, exactly. I don't know why. That's weird that you couldn't hear it. But in any event, the people on the audience could hear it, and it sounded very similar to how it sounds today. We just the thing that always jumps out at me from the first show 14 years ago. Bailey, were you even born 14 years ago? That occurs to me that that's a relevant question to ask, because the answer might depress me thoroughly for the rest of the day. But what jumps out at me is that we never actually introduced ourselves with our last names. It was just Drew, Richard, and Ezra to start, and we never actually used our last names at that point in time.
Nobody cares. Does anybody care about your last name? It's really only the first name that matters.
Well, now they know our last names. Do you remember what the name of the show was?
Yeah, it was the illegalcurve.com radio show.
Good memory. I wanted to see
Yeah.
if you remembered that. Okay,
But
good job.
going back to those days, I was trying to. I don't know if we had a guest on the first show, but Bobby Clark was one of our first guests. I'm not sure if that was the third show or the fourth show or everything like that. Of course, my dad is from Flin Flon. Shout out to my dad if he's watching. So my dad pulled a few strings, and we. I think Bobby Clark was in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, because he has a home in Florida. I'm not sure if he was with the Panthers organization or the Flyers organization.
No,
I'm pretty sure with the Flyers, right? Yeah. So we had Bobby Clark on. That was a huge thrill to talk to him about. I'm not sure what we talked to him about back then. Probably Chris Pronger or something like that. But yeah, and then we were lucky enough to have. Remember, we had Patrick Sharp on because you had a connection in Ottawa, right?
Episode 2 or 3. Yeah, we had Patrick Sharp on.
Yeah,
when he was still with the Blackhawks. You're right, Ezzy, and we had Mike Bossy on at a point in time.
Oh, that was a huge thrill. Yeah,
yeah. It was, it's been fun over the last 14 years, folks. As you well know, it has been fun. It's hard to believe that it's been 14 years. Exactly.
And it's great that Dave showed up, right? Like, it's good that he didn't just go to Vegas and decide to, treat himself and go solo. So Dave's been great on today's show.
I thought he's really been, Dave and Richie have been really pulling their weight on today's show, like no show other. But nonetheless,
Richie's got 2 bottles in each hand right now. So, and we're not talking about alcohol bottles. So.
It's true. It's true. He's a busy man. Let's get back to the Jets, though. We were talking about it. Timo Meier, of course, is the big name. And
doesn't he make so much sense for my Devils? Like, I think the Rangers right now are considered the front runner, but like those teams have cap space, right? Like that's the big difference.
So do the Jets.
Well, they don't have the cap space that the Devils and the Rangers have, though, Drew.
Well, they have the cap space to it. They can acquire Timo Meier if they wanted to. It's not like they won't be able to fit him within the cap, as opposed to some of the other teams that are.
But it's next year,
bandied
though.
About.
It's $10 million next year that I think you have to be concerned about.
Well, so I guess I want to look at it. Can you foresee a circumstance where it's a possibility for the Jets? I mean, it would certainly be an upgrade.
Timo Meier?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities right now. I just don't think the Jets are at the front of the race.
I don't think they're at the front of the race.
I don't think
either.
the Jets are a favorite right now to land Timo Meier, is what I'm saying.
I don't disagree, but it's sort of ironic because if you look at what the Jets would theoretically have to offer, it's a lot of pieces that San Jose would probably be interested in. Young players who, obviously the first round pick, which is, look, any of these first round picks, people make them out to be as if they're worth their weight in gold. These are by and large, the teams that are acquiring them are anticipating giving up a late first round pick. So a late first round pick, is not necessarily going to change your franchise. I know that, they put such a heavy premium on it.
But it's a crapshoot.
It's a crapshoot. I mean, look, Jim Slater was a late first round pick. No disrespect to Jim Slater. Very good NHL career, but he's not changing anyone's franchise. You look at some of the other late first round picks or even the mid first round picks that the Jets have made over the years, or even some of the other teams. They're not game changers. They're not changing the trajectory of your franchise. So to me, giving up a late first round pick or a first round pick in the mid 20s isn't isn't all it's cracked up to
But
be.
apparently they want 2 first-round picks, though, Drew. That's the issue. So they want a high-end prospect,
Right.
and then they also want a first-round pick, right? So it's a high price. It's a much higher price than you're going to have to give up for Jonathan Taves, for example, right? Like, to me, there's tiers of guys here, right? Like, the guys, the top tier guys, Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, Timo Meier. I think Jacob Chikrin is in the top tier for defensemen. But then when you talk about the second tier, then you've got, the Vladislav Gavrikovs, you've got the Luke Schens, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's an option. Like, we don't know, if, Chevy has spoken to Mike Greer. We have no idea. But you'd have to think right now, like, Timo Meier is a guy that the Jets would love to have, because if you think about it, then that moves Blake Wheeler down to a third line role, right?
Of course.
Can you imagine having Timo Meier and Nick Ehlers, former Halifax Mooseheads, on the same line? Like, Meier is an incredible player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no doubt that he's number one on the daily face-off trade board, and he's probably, number one on most teams who are
He's number one on the TSN trade bait board. He's number one for a reason, because he does what is the hardest thing to do in the NHL, which is score goals. He's an elite goal scorer in the NHL. When you pair him with a guy like Kyle Connor or Mark Scheifele, other guys who are also in the elite category when it comes to goal scoring, or certainly in Scheifele's case, if you don't want to say he's elite there, he's damn close to elite when it comes to goal scoring. I mean, then it really makes your team all that more dangerous. But to me, the $10 million, while it's significant and it's certainly a factor, if you're looking at it from the Jets' perspective, so look, Blake Wheeler's contract is expiring not next year, but the year after. Pierre-Luc Dubois, you don't know what his long-term status is here. $10 million, if you could get him Meier under contract, isn't as big of a bite to chew, I find, when you consider all the contracts that might be leaving the Jets roster. Now, I don't expect the Jets to acquire him. It's not in their MO. It's not traditionally how they've operated. They've always gone, when it comes to the trade deadline, for the expiring contract guys, or the guys who are a little bit less expensive in terms of cost and might just be pure rentals. When was the last time the Jets acquired anybody who had term on their contract at the deadline? I don't think they ever have. It was Kevin Hayes, pending UFA, Paul Stastny, pending UFA, even guys like Lee Stempniak. Wasn't he a pending UFA, and Yuri Tlusty back in the day? So again, these
don't forget about Jay Harrison.
Jay Harrison, sure. That wasn't at the deadline, though. That was when they had that huge rash of injuries. But so, the Jets, I don't believe, have acquired anybody at the deadline that's ever had term on their deal.
Shout out to Joe Morrow.
Sure, Joe Morrow. I mean, when they acquired Dylan DeMello, they of course then re-signed him, but he was I think going to be a pending UFA if I recall correctly, when they acquired him from Ottawa.
But maybe this is the time, Drew, like you said, to acquire a guy with some term. Like, I don't know if we're talking about a guy that has 6 or 7 years. I'm not talking about that, but 2 years, 3 years, something like that. Jacob Chikrin is a guy that we talked like.
Sure.
Look at Chikrin. I think his name has been out there for so long, like. It's almost like you forget about it in a way, right? Like, because his name has been out there for well over a year in terms of a guy that, could be moved by Arizona, right? So
you wonder if Arizona has misplayed their hand, Ezzy. Maybe they've been asking for the moon and teams are going to pivot away from
I think that's 100% it, because you heard about that last year, right? Like, you heard about teams that didn't want they wanted to acquire Chikrin, but like they were treating him like he was basically Erik Karlsson.
Sure.
And that's another guy who's out there that I don't think anybody expects the Jets to acquire. But, it's going to be really interesting. Like, that's really swinging for the fences. Like, if you're a team like the Rangers or, some of the other teams that we know that want to acquire defensemen, but I just think it's going to be way too hard to move Karlsson.
Well, look, yes, especially with San Jose should be thrilled that they can maybe get out from under Erik Karlsson's contract and maybe factor that into their thinking. Instead, they're asking for 3 first-round picks or something. Look, Erik Karlsson's a great player. He's having a fantastic year, but he's
he's not 25 years old either.
That's right. You can also read the calendar. You can see how old he is. You can know that this year is actually an anomaly from his previous seasons. And so is this the year that's likely to continue for the next 3, 4, 5 years? Or is it likely to revert back to something maybe between this year and his poor seasons when he first
his
went
shooting
over to
percentage and his point totals are way up. And it's
Right.
fun to watch, right? But you're right. He's probably more of a 50 to 60 point defenseman as opposed to like an 80 to 90 point defenseman. But regardless, like, do you want to give up those multiple first-round picks? Like, do you think acquiring Erik Karlsson is going to put you over the top and make you a legitimate Stanley Cup contender? Like, there's only, I think, a few teams that I think are even seriously considering acquiring him.
Well, that's the problem with the teams that are in the Eastern Conference that are talking about this, talking about acquiring players and getting in there. But, because the East is such a dogfight. I mean, you tell me, Boston has obviously had an incredible year, and nobody would argue that they're the best team in the NHL.
They could also get knocked out in the first round depending on who they play.
That's just it. I mean, or take a team like Carolina. So if you're New Jersey or you're New York and you acquire and you go out and you go, the big game hunting, like we like to say, or like people like to say, does that change your trajectory? Does that change significantly where you're going to go if you're a team in the East? Does New Jersey, if they acquire Timo Meier, does that make them better than Carolina? Does that make them better than Boston?
No,
probably not. So you're going to spend all these assets and you're still going to be in a very similar spot. Whereas if a team in the West goes big game hunting, that changes, how the West might play out, because none of the teams in the West right now, they're all fairly middling. They're all good, but there's no stupendous team. But if you're at the Jets, for example, or Seattle, I mean, you can use any of the teams that are sort of middling, good but middling in the West. If you acquire a Timo Meier, or if you're Colorado or Edmonton, I mean, look, I can say all the teams. If you acquire a legitimate superstar, that probably puts you at the head of the pack for those teams in the West. It doesn't necessarily do the same for a team in the East.
And I do think someone is going to swing for the fences in the West because it's so wide open, right? Like, right. I don't think, you hear Colorado, like Jonathan Taves, could be a guy that Colorado's after, or, Colorado could be after like this year's version of Arturi Lehkonen. Another guy that we haven't really talked about, I believe it was our good friend Kenny Weeb that brought this up. Ivan Barbashev, to me, makes a lot of sense for the Jets or a number of teams.
Fits in perfectly right on that, improving your third line, improving your middle six.
He's big, he's physical, and he's a guy who just set career highs last year. What did he have, 55 points? Something like that. I want to say 25 goals. I'd have to look it up here. But Barbashev is a guy that can play in your second line, third line, and that's not going to cost you a lot to acquire him either, right?
Right. I mean, again, he's a pending UFA. He's a pure rental. Of course, you can re-sign him. Last year, he had 26 goals and 60 points. So again, that fits perfectly for that. Because look, you look at the Jets' middle six, and there's no question that it needs to be better if they truly want to make if they expect to make a run in the West. I mean, they've had a great year so far, but you do need to shore up that middle six, that bottom six, wherever you want to say it. And so, maybe instead of going for one of the biggest names, you sort of go for those guys who are a little bit under the radar, a little bit maybe on the, not the fringe, because that's not the right word for it, but the Barbashevs, the Domies, and all of a sudden you're bumping guys down, out of your third and fourth lines. Maybe you're putting them into the press box and you're replacing them with guys who are seasoned veterans who know how to win or have been through the playoff battles. Like a guy like Barbashev has played over his NHL career. He's played 50 playoff games. He knows how to play in the playoffs.
All with the Blues. Yeah.
All with the Blues. He's only played with the Blues. He's been with the Blues for the last 7 years. So a guy who's still got some tread on the tires, who probably is looking for an opportunity, who's had a bad year in St. Louis. He's had a down year, which is only going to lower his asking price, or the price that the Blues are going to get. What would you have to give
up? A second round pick?
Probably. I don't
think third round pick. Like, I'm not sure. I don't think you would have to give up a first round pick.
Yeah, I wouldn't think you would. I wouldn't think, especially with the year he's had, I wouldn't think you would require a first round pick. I would think, something a little, like you said, maybe a second and a fourth, or a second and a fifth, something like that.
And again, you could always get that back, right? Like Chevy can get these picks back by whether it's like we've talked about, like moving a defenseman or whatever. Like,
if you want to move in and move out, sure.
Yeah, so I mean that's something to consider. I see the Jets going down that route, and again, I do think there is the possibility that Chevy is going to acquire somebody that we haven't been talking about. But if I'm a betting man here, I'm thinking that the Jets acquire a top 9 forward and more of a kind of depth defenseman. Like we talked about, like Luke Schenn's not a guy that I'm advocating for, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the route they go. Like they get an Ivan Barbashev and a Luke Schenn, or players similar to that.
I'd even look at
but
twofold.
Jonathan Taves, I think, is absolutely, in the conversation. I just don't know how serious the Jets are about acquiring him.
Well,
I don't think anybody does.
Those are all the big questions that'll have to be answered. Less than a month from now is the trade deadline. 1 month from yesterday is the NHL trade deadline. When we come back, get your questions ready. Put them in the chat. Ask Illegal Curve anything. Hockey related, nonsense related, food related, whatever is on your mind. We'll talk about it next. You can ask the questions. We will try and answer them for the final 25 or so minutes of this morning's program. Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg celebrating 14 years of Illegal Curve Radio. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Saturday morning, we're back on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Another week off ahead for the Winnipeg Jets. Actually, I guess they'll be back on the ice Thursday afternoon for practice, but our next broadcast won't be again until next Saturday morning, 9 a.m. back here on our YouTube channel. And then again, next Saturday night, close to midnight, will be the Illegal Curve post-game show following the Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks.
I get the feeling, by the way, that I know you want to get into Ask IC Anything here, but I get the feeling with all of this time off and how just terrible the Blackhawks are, like I'm already predicting like that's going to be just a thrashing 7-1 or something.
I don't know, because Chicago plays this week. Chicago doesn't have this week off. I think I looked it up. I think they play, if I recall correctly, they play on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's good that they don't have this week off because they've taken the whole season off thus far.
That's funny, Ezzy. They play. Maybe I'm wrong. Actually, hang on. It wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong, but I could have sworn that they. I thought they. Maybe I read something wrong. That wouldn't be surprising in the least bit if I read something wrong. But I could have sworn I saw that they were playing. Hang on. No, they play Friday. Never mind. It is a back-to-back situation for Chicago. It's even worse. That's what. Yeah, I knew they played.
7-1, Drew.
Yeah, they play Tuesday at home to Anaheim. That'll be a barn burner. Don't forget getting your tickets to that, folks.
Connor Bedard Bowl, right?
Yeah, then they play Friday at home to Arizona, another barn burner. I know, hold on to your seats waiting for that. And then they come here to play that weird 9:00 start on Saturday. So
they are going to be exhausted, and they're a horrible hockey team. So I think that's going to be an easy W for the Jets.
Okay, well, and Lord knows, as these predictions have never gone awry before. Something I checked out before the show in terms of the remaining strength of schedule for all the teams in the NHL. Jets come in sort of middle of the pack. They have the, I guess that would be the 18th hardest schedule left from now until the end of the regular season with the 30 games they have left. Their hardest games are against, of course, Eastern Conference teams by and large. They have one against Boston, one against Carolina, two against the Devils, one against the Lightning, one against the Rangers, and their hardest Western Conference game is against the Seattle Kraken. The Jets have easy games against the Columbus Blue Jackets, although they've lost to the Blue Jackets. The Blackhawks next Saturday, they have one against the Ducks, one against the Coyotes, three more against the San Jose Sharks, and then one more against the St. Louis Blues. The team with the easiest schedules in the NHL left, starting Colorado has the 28th easiest schedule, or I guess they have, the 5th easiest schedule. Then Calgary, Los Angeles, Seattle, and the team with the easiest schedule left in the NHL for the remainder of the season are the Dallas Stars. So there you go. There's a little bit of food for thought as it pertains to.
It's going to be a great race, right? Like it's completely wide open. Like Colorado can still catch in theory, but like 8 points, they have those 4 games in hand. It's going to be close.
Yeah.
But that's what you like to see, right? Like same thing with the East. There's going to be a race for those last 2 wild card spots. Obviously, nobody's catching Boston or Carolina in the East, but those wild card spots, you've got Florida in there, you've got the Islanders in there, the Sabres, who, I think we're all pulling for to get that last wild card spot, but you'd have to play the Bruins in the first round. But yeah, I mean, that's even more reason why I think this is a year where you go for it if you're the Jets. And I think Kevin Cheveldayoff knows that, and he's got that first round pick basically ready to go.
Yeah, exactly right. And I saw there was a question. Okay, let's get into Ask a Legal Curve question or Ask a Legal Curve anything. Kurt was asking about Max Domi earlier, and we were talking, of course, about Max Domi, and he's definitely a name that's out there. He's a pending UFA. He's having a great year for the Blackhawks, which is the definition of damning with faint praise, with 35 points in 48 games.
He's the only guy having a good year, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, this is a guy who, remember when Max Domi was at his peak, 18-19 with the Montreal Canadiens, where he was just a bit under a point a game, and then he's just been sort of on a downward spiral since then. Look, I think would not surprise me at all if Max Domi ended up as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. I think the Jets are looking for solutions and players.
Does that mean they have to acquire Chris King's child as well?
I don't know if that's a rule, but I think it should be. They you can't have one Domi in Winnipeg without Kinger next to him. Yeah, of course. There's some behind the scenes. When we had an opportunity to have dinner with Chris King going back in the day, we had a nice little dinner with him.
Mona Lisa patio.
That's right. Back in the day, those are some funny stories you have to tell.
Look, I think Max Domi, by the way, I think there's going to be a lot of every time, we talk about the trade deadline a month out, everybody has their guys, right? And I mean, Max Domi is a little bit of a controversial guy because, as you mentioned, Drew, his career trajectory, it's been kind of a little bit up and down. Not a little bit, it's been up and down, and he's been on 4 or 5 teams now. So I mean,
Arizona, Montreal, Columbus, where else is it? Chicago, obviously.
Right. And then number 5 could be, in a few weeks, right? So I think he would not cost you as much as, the Timo Meyers or the Ryan O'Reillys, right? And he's going to play on the wing. But the thing I like about Domi is he's a guy that can be a pest, right? And come playoff time, we've talked a lot about, Pierre-Luc Dubois gets under the skin of players. And that's something that I think, over the last few years, the Jets have become a more difficult team to play against. I think, not necessarily, as difficult to play against as the 2017 to 2019 Jets when you had, Buff and Trouba and Sherrod on the back end. But yeah, Max Domi's an interesting one. We don't know, what the Jets' interest in Domi is, even though it makes a lot of sense for the connections and everything, like the familial connections and everything like that. So he's definitely a guy on the radar. And again, what are you giving up to get him? I don't think you're going to have to give up a first-round pick to get him.
No, I wouldn't expect that you would. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of interest in him, certainly, which might drive up the asking price a little bit. But no, it wouldn't be I wouldn't trade a first-round pick for Max Domi. Let me tell you that. And I don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff would either. But it would sort of be ironic if, all the focus on Jonathan Toews coming home to Winnipeg. Well, Max Domi was born in Winnipeg too. So maybe we're looking at the wrong member of the Chicago Blackhawks that's going to come home to Winnipeg.
$3 million in a pending UFA. For those who don't know, I did a quick cap friendly. So, that's what do we have, $1 million left on his contract or less than that? And then you give up maybe a second round pick and a prospect or something like that. So it's definitely, a logical option for the Jets.
Moving on, Ask a Legal Curve anything for the next 16 minutes while we wrap up this morning's show. Ezzy, Spencer wants to know, are you wearing pants?
I am wearing pants. I'm wearing black sweatpants right now.
Okay, good to know. That's definitely appreciated, especially your mother-in-law called and she says that she appreciates the fact that you're wearing pants while you're in her house.
That's a hard-hitting question.
That's the kind of insight you've come to expect here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Spencer wants to know if I'm weeding pants. Spencer, I don't know what that means, but I can assure you that I have not planted any pants, and thus I am not weeding any pants. So thank you, Spencer, as per usual, for your insightful contributions to this morning's program.
I guess we could also ask, is Spency wearing pants?
We know the answer is probably no, is what I'm assuming, is that Spency is probably not wearing pants. Bailey's mom wants to know, what is your favorite kind of cookie, Ezzy?
Wow. You know what? It's actually something that you wouldn't maybe expect. I like peanut butter cookies. Chocolate chip are classic. I am an oatmeal raisin fan. I know some people don't like raisins in cookies.
You can't just name every cookie that's ever been made. That's not how it's going to work.
There's a reason why I'm 250 pounds, right? So I'm going to go peanut butter cookie, though, as my favorite cookie. And I don't have them very often either.
Well, that's good. That way you have it in moderation so that when you do have them, you can really appreciate it and savor it all the more.
I just bought some Dream Puffs from Superstore, and my kids are loving them, and I'm loving them. So shout out to Raspberry Dream Puffs.
Okay, I don't know what those are, but I'm sure that they are definitely
Cream puffs with the
recommended.
marshmallow, and then you've seen those.
I'm sure I have. You're right. If you want to know my answer, shortbread. I love a good shortbread cookie. Really,
Yeah, shortbread is nice. Yeah,
rich with butter is a good one. Prime Timer wants to know, who is your favorite player in the NHL right now, Ezra?
wow, that's a tough one. Whew, it's tough to pick one player. Like I honestly don't. I don't really have one favorite player.
Yeah, current player, because we know all time you'd been mentioning some random Devils
it would be
player
Ken
like
Danico for
Bobby
sure.
Holik or Ken Danico.
Yeah, Scott Niedermayer. My favorite player of all time, is Scotty Stevens.
Yes.
Let me pause on that one. I really like watching Josh Morrissey. Like, I'll be honest, Morrissey's right up there. I mean, we're biased because we watch the Jets on a regular basis. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Josh Morrissey.
Okay, well, there you go. As he is going with trying to curry favor with the hometown crowd with the answer to that question. Morrissey's been great to watch this year, no question about it. There's Ezzy's answer right now.
I mean, the obvious ones. I mean, Connor McDavid. I mean, I'm a Devils fan, so I could say Jack Hughes, right? There's a lot of guys, but I especially with the way he's playing this year, I got to go with my man Morrissey.
Okay, there you go. As he's going with that one. Kenny's water bottle wants to know, what is my eyeglasses prescription? A very insightful question, Kenny. I can assure you, let me put it to you this way. I've just taken off my glasses. I should actually do the show like this more often because I can't see Ezzy. I have terrible vision. My right eye is, I believe, -8 1/4, and my left eye is -9. So
what are your eyes' expected goals for?
My eyes' expected goals for, if I'm not wearing my glasses, would be negatives, forever, negative infinity, because I wouldn't be able to both see the puck or see the net or know that I was skating. Is also a factor. Like, I know that there's a giant IC banner behind me, but I can't actually see the I or the C on the screen without my glasses. That is, I am definitely have poor vision, but thank you, Kenny's water bottle.
Can you see what finger I'm giving you right now, or you have your glasses back on?
Hang on.
Yeah.
If you give me,
what finger am I giving you, Drew?
I can't see it. I mean, I can assume I know what it is.
There's no finger.
Well, then there you go. I actually don't have any idea. I cannot see anything at all. That is how poor my vision is. But there's a good question there. Isha Boy Bruce wants to know how I made all my millions. The answer, of course, is insider trading and not the TSN segment.
Drew was an intern of Bernie Madoff, so he did quite well back in 2006 to 2008.
That's right, exactly. I may have crushed some poor innocent people, but I've done well for myself, and as a result, I can afford all the grid parking spots that I need for upcoming Jets games. Let's see any other good questions here on the Ask Illegal Curve Anything segment of the show. Thank you, BD Longshot. He says he's been listening to us since we were on Wednesday nights. That's great.
Right on.
We appreciate all that love. Kenny's water bottle is saying that his IQ has not improved listening to us over all these years. There's no question about that. Listening to us is harmful for your health.
I like that comment that you had in the start in our private chat that we've got here from Matt Moara, if I'm pronouncing that right. I've been listening since you got it there. I've been listening since 2011, back when I lived in a dirt cheap apartment in the north end and couldn't afford cable, just had a radio to listen to Jets games. I love that. It's really cool. I got to say, corniness aside, I've always loved when, people tell us that they've been listening since back then. Right. So it's a really cool thing. I got to be honest.
There you go. Mark Sports Video. We know he's got coaching experience. He wants to know if we have any coaching experience in any sport. Mark, I must say I did coach both my son and my daughter in house league soccer this past summer. That was quite the feather in my cap.
But who did you coach against, though, Drew?
I coached against none other than Mr. Blake Wheeler of the Winnipeg Jets. His daughter was playing in the same league. I can assure you that I'm not meant to be a coach in soccer. I was a volunteer coach, and the emphasis is on the word volunteer and not on the word coach. I think the kids spent most of the time just trying to kick the ball at my head, which was fun for them and, a little bit of damaging for yours truly. But Ezzy, you coached hockey, did you not?
Yeah, I coached hockey 1 year. That's going back, I think, right around when we started the hockey show, 2009, 2010. I coached Tuxedo Lightning U13 A1. I coached soccer as well for a couple of years. I think it was U15 soccer, River Heights Community Center, shout out. Also ref soccer. That was one of my first jobs, actually. I officiated soccer. I think I started when I was 12. So like 12 to 17, I was a soccer ref. But yeah, 1 year of hockey and a couple years of soccer. But we'll see. I mean, like you said, Drew, like my kids might need a coach at some point. So I'll have to dust off the old Coaching One certification, maybe. But I've always wanted to coach baseball, to be honest with you. I only played baseball for a few years, but we'll see maybe if one of my kids plays baseball in the future and I can maybe teach them how to hit not very well.
There you go. That's always a good one.
I did strike out 7 in one game, though. That's why they called me the Sandy Koufax of River Heights. 12 or 13 years old, playing baseball for River Heights, and that was my kind of shining moment. I struck out 7 and in relief, and then I really wasn't that good of a pitcher after that. But that one day, I felt like I was Todd Stottlemyre.
There you go. You're a machine on that one day. Lisa Danko wants to know if we ever played hockey.
Yeah, we played hockey. I didn't play at a particularly high level. The highest level I played was Varsity View A1 hockey. But I did win the Maccabia Championship. I was the first overall pick in the Jewish B League. So that was probably my peak of playing hockey. I used to play rec hockey as well. But Drew's going to show you a clip of himself playing hockey.
I hope you guys can see this. This is going back to October 28th, 1988. As you can see, that's a wee lad, Mr. Mindell.
Look at that edge work.
It really is fascinating edge work, isn't it? This is Wayne Gretzky's first game back in Winnipeg after he was traded to Los Angeles.
Go back there, by the way. And by the way, your skating is like you're running on ice. It's hilarious. But did you snub Benny there?
Did I? Hang on.
I think Benny went to give you a high five, Drew. Just go back. I think you might have snubbed Benny.
It's possible. I may not have known what I was doing. Yeah.
I think that was a bit of a Benny snub.
This is the Community Club Showdown, which I was selected for. I hadn't been skating for very long at this point in time. You can't hear it on the video, but all you hear in the background is my father supporting his son by laughing uproariously at my misfortune or at my skill set here. So I learned at a very early age that my hockey career was probably not going to go very far. I can't believe I'm actually showing this video, but I
like the number 4, classic number. It's a pretty good shot there, actually, Drew. Like, considering the circumstances, there's a lot of pressure on you there.
I didn't score. Is the goalie? I don't think maybe the goalie had to make a save on the first one, but I think the next 2 I may have missed, and I think I delayed the game by about a good 5 to 10 minutes. It took me so long to get on.
How many times have Sam and Aaron seen this clip? By the way, I'm going to guess like 500 times.
Probably not. I think they usually just ignore me and walk away from me whenever I try and show them this clip, because I say to them, you have to be better than this. This is the goal in all these skating lessons and other, lessons that you're taking, is be a little bit better than I was in that video.
I'm surprised that this doesn't just play on a loop at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame.
I think they've been after it. They've been asking for the video, but they haven't been able to quite get their hands on it. We haven't been able to reach a contractual agreement on that. But there you have it. There's a little blast from the past going back to 1988. One of my most indelible memories.
You were 25 at the time.
That's right. I was 25. I was a very, very small 25-year-old, but that is exactly what I was at, trying to play hockey.
Okay, what else do we have here? This is Ask Icy Anything. We got 5 minutes here before the show ends. Like, this is your time to ask us, very deep, intimate questions.
Let me see.
I'm joking, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to find. Did either of us ever witness Remus win the home run derby? The media home run derby during the, I think it was a Goldeyes All-Star game, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't witness it. I remember Remus told everybody about, that's for sure. Yeah. He was talking about that. I think he made it. He put it on his Twitter bio for a while there. I did not see him win the home run derby, but I did see him win the rock climbing competition at the University of Winnipeg, because back in the day, when I was a student there, I'm a proud U of Winnipeg grad. And I remember Remus, I think, was going to collegiate at the time. So he won the U of W. If you were a U of W student or alumni, you know what I'm talking about here. They've got that big rock that is just off of Portage Avenue or faces Portage Avenue, and Remus won the rock climbing competition.
Andrew wants to know, he always pictures me as a hockey ref and Ezzy as a linesman. Yes or no? I did ref hockey. That is an accurate statement, Andrew. I refereed hockey when I was a teenager. I don't really have very many memories of it or anything that jumps out to me. But I think I remember former Bomber Rick House was the coach in one of the games that I was reffing. And let's just say that he was not the most appropriate in his behavior in his discussions with a probably 13 or 14-year-old referee. That would be yours truly. But did you ever ref hockey, Ezzy?
I didn't ref hockey. I mentioned earlier I ref soccer. I'm too short to be a linesman. I'm only, just over 5'9". So you got to be like, I don't know, at least 6 feet, 6'1" to be a linesman, right? I obviously don't think he's being too serious with that question. But if we could get some footage of Drew being yelled at by former Bomber Rick House, that would be pretty good footage that I would like to see. But yeah, no hockey refereeing for me. I mean, I do work at Hockey Manitoba, so I do know some people. I could easily become a ref, but
We'll see if you
I
can
think at
find
40
some
years old, my best days are behind me.
Do they still have some game sheets? Maybe they still have some game sheets that you can pull out and see if they can find my name on them going back many a year ago. It would probably be 1993, 1994, somewhere maybe into 95. I don't really remember exactly, but maybe there. Mark Sports Video wants to know how many commercials we've done. We've done a lot of commercials on this show. I haven't been able to find it, but if I'm able to find it, maybe I'll show it. I also did a television commercial for Sand Stores. If you remember Sand Stores, SAAN, I did a TV commercial for them when I was a wee lad and far cuter than I currently am.
Yeah, no TV commercials for me. I thought he was asking about all the radio commercials we've done.
I think
because if you go back to 2011 or 2010, when we were on Sports Radio 1290 and then TSN 1290, we've probably recorded, I don't know, 25, 30 commercials. I'm pretty sure we did 10 for Bernstein's alone with all the high holidays and everything like that, right? But also Mark Sports Video asking if it's an electric or gas car. I'd love to drive an electric car if they come down in price a little bit. But yeah, I'm still just driving the old putt-putt.
There you go. But you drive it well, as you haven't got into an accident.
Yeah. Nobody drives a Nissan Sentra like I do.
No, it's true. You can always spot Ezzy. And if you ever see a Nissan Sentra, you'll know it's Ezzy's if you see the license plate. The license plate is a key giveaway.
Repping the legal curve. I couldn't fit it all, so it's ILGLCRV. That's me. If you see me on the streets, just picture me rolling
in your Nissan Sentra with 2 car seats in the back, like all the cool kids do. That's it. That's Ask a Legal Curve. Anything. We do this every now and then on this program. We figure this would be a fun week to do it with.
Jeff O'Neill, by the way, couldn't join us. He was originally supposed to join us, but he had to drive one of his children to hockey practice. So he texted me this morning around, I think it was 8:30. So it was a little bit of a late bail from the O-Dog, but hopefully we'll be able to get him on next week or some other time throughout the season. But that's why we were going to have the O-Dog on, but. Again, we've had him on many times before, and unfortunately he had to bail last minute. So still had a great show, but just wanted to get that in there.
Exactly right. And we'll have, we thought it'd be a fun way to do this as well, given the lack of hockey content, not a lot going on this week, of course, with it being the All-Star break or the bye week or whatever the hell delay is, whatever the hell the reason is. There haven't been games for basically the last 12 or so days.
The Jets are back on the ice on Thursday, I believe, though.
Thursday afternoon at 2:00 Thursday afternoon. Exactly right. 2:00 on Thursday afternoon is when the Jets will be back on the ice. We want to say a big thank you to all the sponsors of this show, of the post-game show, and of the website for their continued support. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, Grid Park, and the Keg support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. It's your boy Bruce. Yes, I wear pink all the time, and I'm not being sarcastic at all. It is absolutely one of the staples of my wardrobe.
Yeah, pink's a great color.
It is a great color, and Josh Morrissey's pink suit was probably the best part of All-Star Weekend, because that was a sharp-looking suit that I definitely would like to wear as well, but I don't think I would be able to fit it, given the bit of the size discrepancy between me and Josh. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks to Mike McIntyre for joining us in hour number 1 as well. In case you missed any of the show, there's an immediate replay on YouTube, and of course the podcast will be available soon thereafter. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and leave us feedback here, there, and everywhere. We always appreciate the support. IllegalCurve.com is updated as needed with all your latest Winnipeg Jets news and audio and Moose news and ice news and everything else under those.
Dave just has to step away from the craps table, and then he's going to update the website.
Exactly. As soon as Dave is away from the crowd, as soon as we drag him away from the craps table, he'll get that all updated. Ezra Ginsburg is on the right of your screen. I'm your host, Drew Mandel, on the left. It's been a great 14 years to another 14 years coming up over the next little while. We thank everyone for their support. Have a great Saturday, everyone. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.